becomes a requirement for majority of things. When you go to college, you'll get into a big opportunity to get in there because you speak the language. You'll get furthermore opportunities to get into jobs if you speak the language. Now, what do we define the word of developing countries? Now, these countries includes countries like Indonesia, Afghanistan, India, etc. Now, in this debate, we apply the scenario on public schools, where private schools can still have other language included in these subjects. But what makes a problem is that even the private schools have them, but it's only limited to the ones who are able to afford it. Thus, why the problem of only having English as the only language to learn in these public schools are very critical, since most of these people go to these public schools. Now, what is our stance? As the government, we do really believe that countries like Indonesia, Afghanistan, India, etc. still needs the opportunity to learn other language other than English. Now, two arguments in this debate. Firstly, on extinction of cultures. Secondly, on lack of diversity. Now, what do we mean by the lack of diversity? Why do we say that? We do really understand that the opposition may be concerned of how there's a lack of understanding in the English language, when English language is very important, since it's an international language. People need to know this language well to get into way more bigger opportunities. It could lead to way more stuff in these people's lives. That's why they do think that is very important. But getting into the fact that having to only learn English is a critical way. How if they are going to learn another language very well if they don't even know how to speak their own language? Now, how is this true? There are a lot of examples on how mostly private international school kids, they speak very well in English, since they speak it most of their lives in weekdays, since they go to school. Yet most of them can't even talk to the old man that has a restaurant downtown. Now, why is this a critical thing? We see that these people of their own country can't even communicate with the people. They can't have a relation to the people who are their ancestors, etc., etc. These people go down onto their street and they don't even know how to ask for help from these people who had their native language, yet they can't learn it in the first place. Now, on the second point on this argument is how is this very critical, and there's a possibility of these students not knowing how to master the English language well, since they don't even fully understand their own native language. How is that so? We see if you are born in a country, for example, Indonesia, there's the language is very different, and the characterization of the language has very different meanings. When you see the difference on how in Indonesia, when they say a term that is very different and that doesn't exist in the English language, it is a very critical thing. They can't translate what they're saying. They can't. Therefore, the lack of opportunity to help their own people is very low. When there's people who are in these indigenous areas in their own country, they're trying to speak their own language, yet you can't even understand a single of them. Even though you understand a little bit, you don't have the capability to actually translate it to English to the most people who are able to help, but there's a lack of communication, and you don't even understand your own culture. This means this is going to be an extinction of self-culture. And secondly, we're going to the point of the second argument of lack of diversity. Now, why do we say so? This is not only the problem of schools, like public schools, only learning in language and only learning English, and the lack of learning their own native language. It is also a lack of diversity of how they can master in any language. When in reality, language are like most of the useful things in the world, where if you can master more than 2 languages, you're able to communicate with people more. Now, in in the status quo may mean that most of people need to understand the English language, so the communication needs to be, the communication is way more easier. But the problem here is there's still people who are out there who are able to afford, even in public schools, to go to public schools to even learn English. That's why you need to be able to master as much as other language if you have the willingness to do. This means there's a lack of diversity and the lack of opportunity to learn something new. When you're a person who is very interested into a job that needs a lot of communication, that needs a lot of language to be known. For example, being a flight attendant, you need to understand way more one language when one of it is very important in English. When you master that, you probably may want to learn Chinese, you probably want to learn Korean, but you don't have the opportunity to do it because the opposition is blocking the opportunity of our future leaders to actually help way more into this world. We say so. That is actually a very good thing if things are being open and the gates being open so people can actually learn way more things. As in, what do we mean by these lack of diversity? You can only learn English and that's the only language you know. Even though you master your own native language, the only language you're able to master is only English if you're just a normal person who doesn't have the capability to actually afford these private schools who have other subjects and other languages. This is a very critical thing to say so, and we as the government side of the House really do understand that this is something that is very important for us to tackle on. As the government side of the House, we believe that this House really supports the idea of how we can only have English as the language in most of the schools that most of people go in the nation. Thank you.